I would like to talk about communication. I would like to take the path of least resistance. How can I do it?
Who are you wanting to communicate with?
No specific person.
Just better at communicating what you mean?
Yes, exactly. And staying, as you said before, because I feel like when I have this goal of communicating something, then I go from here to somewhere lower and it's not clear. My message is then not clear.
Well, there are a number of things that we want to help you to remember about this. First, communication is about transmission and receiving, yes? So it's about what you're saying. It's also about what they're hearing. Let's say that more accurately. It's about what you're broadcasting and what they are receiving. So there are two predominant factors that could interfere with clear communication. One is the transmission, which is you, is muddled. And the other is the receiver, which is them, is muddled. And so for the best of communication, you want to be on the same wavelength. Now, it's interesting because here we are again, always again, talking about vibration rather than about words. But it is about that. So often, people say things they don't really mean. For example, when your children have you frustrated and you say, "Don't you know I love you?" Your word says one thing, but your vibration is indicating something quite different in the moment. And so the best opportunity that you have for clear communication is to make sure that you are tuned in to who you really are and feeling good. Also, have you noticed that when you've been thinking about something for a while and you're feeling good about it, that you are able to convey your words in a more meaningful way? You can't do anything about what somebody else is feeling. The person that you are wanting to communicate with, you can't control where they are. Law of attraction is, though. So if you have mixed signals, if you're thinking about what you want to say, but you're thinking they won't hear you clearly, or you're thinking about what you want to say, but you're worried about something else altogether, then you don't have a very strong transmission going. And so your likelihood of getting something back that you want back from them, which would be their understanding or their equal communication back with you, is not as likely to happen. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we wouldn't worry much about where anybody else is. We'd just be sure that we are where we mean to be. And we would also get some momentum going on it before we just began speaking about it, you see. Esther had a nice experience, something along these lines on this ship, because the ship is nice enough to give Esther and some others a telephone that works on the ship so that they can communicate with one another in the organization of things. And it's not like the smartphones that she's used to using, although it is a very sophisticated phone because it has radio transmission in it, but it is a different kind of animal than she is accustomed to utilizing. And she's had one on several cruises, but she's never really understood it. So she just kind of doesn't use it. And she was afraid that it would ring during the seminar, and it felt complicated to her. But this time, the man who showed it to her had clear confidence not only in what a good phone it was, but in her ability to learn it. And he understood it so well that he just said, "You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this." And Esther understood the phone for the first time in a lot of cruises. And she was laughing at herself about it, thinking, why was I making this so complicated before? And we want to say the confidence with which someone is presenting information to you has a lot to do with whether you receive the information or not. When somebody that really doesn't know what they're talking about tries to explain something to you, you're going to walk away confused. When someone who really knows what they're talking about explains something to you, you have a better probability of walking away having gained the knowledge. Again, is two partners, though, isn't it? In other words, the clearest person in the world could explain something to Esther, and if she's not paying attention, or if her mind is somewhere else. And so it's all about focus, isn't it? So from your point of view, the best you can do is what we call pre-paving. It's decide what it is you're going to say. In this segment, I plan to communicate such and such with so-and-so, and I'm expecting that I will have a clear conversation where they will understand what I'm saying. Communication is so important in co-creation, and it is so easy for people to not be listening at all. And yet you all, so often, who are still in this world of manifestation, of action, of conversation, often, once again, we're having the same conversation that we've been having, aren't we? About making sure that you've taken care of the basics first before you enter into any conversation. And so you say to your children, are you listening to me? Are you listening to me? And if we were there and they were asking us something about it, we would say, it doesn't matter whether they're listening or not. You're broadcasting clumsily, because in your anger, you are not tuned in. You're not of clear mind. You are not broadcasting. You are saying words that you think are clear to them, but you're offering contradictory signals, which they're picking up on too. So it's like cluttering the airwaves and then shouting through it. So the rule of thumb that we would offer, we're talking about communication with anyone. We've said this about your children often. Talk to your children as much as you can, but only when you are feeling good. Talk to your children all the time, but only when you're feeling good. Talk to others all you can, but only when you're feeling good. In other words, tend to business first and then communicate. And when you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, you will communicate with clarity, and the probability of them receiving what you mean is much greater. Esther went through a period of time where she was announcing to people around her, anyone who would listen, I think people hear about 30% of what I say, because she was telling people things, perfectly logical, obvious things that they were not hearing at all. But she was not doing any pre-paving about it. She was not anticipating her conversation in advance. She was just blundering in, sometimes trying to correct problems, sometimes trying to fix things that were broken a little bit, and clearly out of vibrational alignment, and not conveying what she wanted because they could not hear through her mixed message. Really good, isn't it? Something more?
It's still about the communication, because when I notice that the message is not clear or communication is not
being received by the
yes, then I just decide not to communicate anymore. So then I start feeling, okay, maybe you should try harder or do it somewhere else. But
well, don't you
I
think
just
that will change for you now we've had this conversation?
Yeah, I guess it will.
If you have something that you want to convey, don't you still want to convey it? Can you remember the last thing? What's on your mind? Can you remember what is it that you're having a hard time communicating to someone?
Well, I meet a lot of new people here, and then everybody talks about themselves. Then somebody asks me a question, and then in the middle of my answer, something else comes along and they start talking, or somebody else starts talking, and then I just...
This is a very fast-moving energy. You have to be bold if you're going to play with these people.
So, I don't want to go to these, okay, I want to say it and I will say it as long as, until you hear me.
Well,
I just say, okay.
There are a number of things to consider. Sometimes when someone says, how are you? They mean, hello. And when you tell them how you are, they're not that interested, because they didn't know what they were saying to begin with. And so sometimes others are not communicating clearly with you. Also, when you are in an environment where there is a lot of high energy flowing and people are really tuned in, these people are full of themselves. And by that we mean tuned in and really flowing. And so sometimes you just want to sort of sit back a little and get in the rhythm of it. Esther's favorite thing is to be with a group of people where they are all talking at once, sort of. She doesn't want several conversations going on at dinner, although sometimes the dinner tables are so long it is necessary. But she is wanting to hear. She always puts herself right in the middle so that she can hear everything that's happening in every direction, because she just wants to insert something funny or clever or meaningful just at the right time. So she's always got her ears open about what's going on, and quite often she'll say, what was that? What? Start over again. I missed the first part of that. Start over again. I missed the first part of that, because she wants in on as much of it as she can get in on, and you do too. So just decide that you are a communicator with other communicators, and then you'll find your place in it. People are not meaning to be rude in talking over the top of you. It's that when the current is flowing, and current flows in a conversation as collective voices are coming together, you have to sort of stay up with where the current is vibrationally. And if you're not up to speed with that, then you don't jump in at the right moment, your timing isn't good, and the others who are there don't have patience for you lagging behind, because kindness is not what this is all about. We can say that better. When you're tuned in and in that flow of things, we want to say this in a way that you will hear it in the way we mean it. In the loving, you're not ready, so we're just going to. In these conversations, when everyone gets on board, there's not time to go back and collect the laggers. And when you do, it slows the momentum of the whole thing. And so again, Abraham, you not only teach selfishness, but now you're teaching rudeness and leaving your fellow men behind. But what we're really saying is, this is a conversation about being up to speed with what's going on, isn't it? Are you in shock out there? Much of the world is operating from other than vibrational knowledge point of views. Most of the world is operating outside of the energy understanding. You see what we're getting at? Which means often conversations, really politically correct, that might not be the best conversation to introduce in this climate, but politically correct or human tendency or human decency or the etiquette that has maybe been taught by some cultures gravitates to the lowest common denominator in terms of energy. In other words, if you're really polite, you make sure that everyone's up to speed before you move forward, which means nobody ever goes anywhere. So you have to decide, and all you have to decide is that you want to be up to speed with you. Because when you're up to speed with you, your timing will be really, really good. People are interested in you. They want to know what you're about. But don't spend too much time going back and talking about where you come from or who you have been. When you come together in conversation, just be who you are. Just light up with all that you are and play with your new co-creators, because that's where the power is in this new conversation that you're having. Humans think that the best thing to do when you all get together is to go around the group and figure out who everybody used to be. That's not what we're encouraging at all. We want you to tune in and present yourself as you are. As you are in combination with who the others are, because you're different now that you are with these than you have ever been before. Every combination of those who come together with you, you are different. Your collective whole is different. Your potential is different. Your exhilaration is different. Your tuning in is different, you see. So anybody who says, who are you or where you come from, you want to just say to them, that's old news. I want to talk about who we are now, you see. So if you have the satisfaction of getting together with a group of those who are tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and you are too, then you don't need to be talking to be having the time of your life. Esther doesn't care who's the straight man and who's the funny man. Esther doesn't care who does a setup and who comes in for the punchline. Doesn't matter. And she is thrilled when everybody comes in for the punchline. that's what makes for the really exhilarating humor or clarity or motion forward or interesting conversation, isn't it? Yeah.